Maureen Driscoll, and today I'm going to talk about how to tell your kids you're getting a divorce. First of all, if you are in an abusive situation, this is not the video for you. First of all, I feel terrible for you. Please get to safety. Please get your family to safety. Contact authorities, talk to counselors, talk to attorneys, whoever it is you need to talk to make sure you get the happy ending you deserve. So, please take care of yourself. For the rest of you, I am not a lawyer. I'm not a counselor. I'm just someone who went through a divorce 30 years ago. I don't even have kids yet. I've seen a lot of friends go through this, and so I've picked up some tips from them. And so I think I've got some pretty good advice. And I'm dividing this section into talking to your kids who are minors and talking to your kids who are adults. So there we go. As you are going through the agonizing process of deciding if you're going to get a divorce, one of the things which has probably come up is like, oh my gosh, how am I going to tell the kids? I have really good news for you. You don't have to tell the kids because they already know, all of them. And you might say to me, what does a 6-year-old know about divorce? A lot. As a matter of fact, not only does your 6-year-old know that you're splitting up, your 6-year-old's teacher probably knows that you are about to split up. Ideally, you will talk to a family therapist, maybe have the whole family go to family therapy to figure out how to get through this, because you want to come up with the right way to do this. But you are on the clock because you may think that you and your spouse have been really quiet as you've been furiously whispering and arguing in your bedroom, but you probably haven't been, and your kids have overheard something. They're not idiots. They can tell that there's tension around the house, and they have friends who have gone through this. And so they might not know what divorce is, they might not know what's going on in your marriage, but they know enough to make it be really difficult for them. And that's what you need to worry about. And again, like you're like, oh, my child is so sheltered, they don't know anything about that. Your child is only as sheltered as their least sheltered friends. And if that friend has an older sibling, it is game over. They know a little bit about a lot of things, and probably they don't know the right things about those things, but they know a lot. You may be saying, oh, well, at least I don't have to worry about my baby and toddler. Okay, a baby and a toddler is basically, they are, okay, how do I put this? They're like loud dogs. They don't know what divorce is, but they can sense things and they can sense tension. And if you don't believe that, think about the last time that like your least favorite relative wanted to hold the baby and the baby's like, whoa, what's going on there? They know that you two are arguing. They can tell how tense you are. And it is a primal effect that we have, that we're born with, to shield us from danger. And we know that these people are like upset, and we don't want any part of that. So even if your kid doesn't know what's going on specifically, they know enough to sense the tension. And your toddler will know more than you think, because they're going to be like, where's daddy or where's mommy once you split up. So what you tell them is probably not the, version that you give your adult kids. But at some point, you are going to have to explain to them what's going on. And in the meantime, your job is to make them feel safe and loved. Now, when you go a little bit older than that, and you've got, like, I'd say, like the kids from like maybe like 4 to tweens, again, they will have picked up on the tension. And what you tell them, you don't have to go into detail. You don't have to tell any of your kids the entire story. You don't have to tell anyone the entire story, but you need to tell them enough to know that things are changing. That you love them. That is the most important thing. You love them. This is not their fault. You will always protect them, and they will always be the most important things to you. That's those 4 things. Just keep hitting those over and over again, because kids are, kind of very self-centered, and so for the most part, they're not really wondering about the division of assets. They are more concerned about, like, where am I going to live? Do I have to change schools? I know Bobby, and I never saw him again when his parents got divorced. So when you're telling him the basics about, mommy, Daddy and I talked about this, and unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to be able to stay married anymore, and we're going to split up. We're still working on it, but we love you. You're the most important thing. It is not your fault. Do you have any questions? And the questions that they're going to come up with are probably much more of the where am I going to live, what school am I going to go to, that type of thing. So those are, not as difficult to answer. Now, when you get to your sullen teenagers, that's where you may get some uncomfortable questions. Why are you getting a divorce? Because if the younger kids are saying why, I mean, they say why about everything, right? Like, why is the sky blue? And you can just sort of blow them off a little bit. You can blow them off a little bit with the divorce, just because, well, mommy and daddy decided to do this. With the teens, you're gonna get some questions you don't want to answer, and you don't have to answer all of them. You do need to be honest, and you can keep it as simple as, we have decided that this marriage we tried, but this marriage isn't working anymore, and we're going to be better as, living separately than we are together as a couple. And you can just keep putting that on repeat over and over and over again. Now, if someone says, somebody cheat on the other person, um, you know, you don't have to specifically answer that. You can go back to, we decided we're better off apart than together, keeping in mind that if one of you if there is a third party, and shortly after this divorce, the third party is about to move in with that partner, uh, it's going to be kind of obvious that there was somebody. And again, marriages are complex. Third parties rarely are the sole reason why people get divorced. In my experience, including my own, I think marriages have problems, and then that leads to the third party, and that leads to divorce. Whatever it is, you just don't want to lie, because that's always bad luck with your kid and bad luck with your kids. And you don't even want to tell the truth, which is shaded to make the other person look bad. For instance, if you might say something about, well, we're getting a divorce because your mother hates it when I travel, which may in itself be true, but if the entire truth is your mom hates it when I travel to go see my affair partner, you're going to really want to rethink what you just said, because it's not fair to mommy, and it's also going to be something where your kids are going to, that it's going to reflect badly on you. Because one of the things that is your job forever is you are supposed to be modeling good adulthood and also a good marriage. Now, sometimes marriage ends in divorce, and it doesn't mean that these people were not good people. It doesn't mean it wasn't a good divorce. It's just sometimes that it was a good marriage. It just means that sometimes marriages end in divorce. The way you do that, the way you conduct yourself every step of the way after this, is going to make an impression on your kids. And it's going to be important in their own relationships. And you may get to the point where you cannot stand your spouse, but I want you to think about what that's going to be like if one of your kids ended up in a relationship like that. Like, you do not want to contribute to someone thinking, oh, okay, it's okay for them to yell and scream about something, or it's okay to cheat on somebody or whatever. You don't want to do that. So as much as possible, I know it's hard, you have to keep their well-being in mind, even as your marriage is falling apart. Now, if you have a blended family, it's even more complicated, because for one thing, these kids have already been through a divorce-like procedure before, and so they know what it's like. And you have to impress upon them, again, it's not their fault. Hopefully you and your spouse had a conversation about how big of a part you're going to play in each other, in these stepchildren's lives from that point on. I have a lovely friend, that her first marriage ended in divorce. It was her spouse's second marriage, and so she had a stepson. They got divorced. She went on eventually to marry somebody else, but she stayed in touch with her stepson. It was a really great relationship. And even when the stepson's father, was my friend's first husband, I should like diagram this. When he passed away, my friend and her husband hosted like a reception for the stepson and and other mourners. So it was a really great relationship. It was a really meaningful relationship for everyone involved. And the wonderful movie Clueless talks about how you divorce spouses, but you still got the kids. Now, that may not be possible. It may not be something that anyone wants, but you really have to be careful. And especially your kids may have formed bonds with their siblings or their that you don't want to interrupt. Like you want to honor that. So you're having this conversation about we're getting a divorce, but that is only really the beginning of the process of how are we going to split up this family and what's going to happen from here on out. So just go to counseling, go to therapy, go to counseling to all of this. But just know as you do so that this initial conversation of like we're splitting up probably needs to happen soon. You are on the clock because almost everyone probably already knows. Okay, how to tell your adult kids who live at home. They already know. How to tell your adult kids who don't live at home. They might not know. It's them and the babies. They don't know, but they probably sense something is off. With your adult kids, you can have a fairly grown up conversation. Again, you do not need to go into details that you don't want to go into. They will ask you, and they probably will ask you the most pointed questions of all. And again, all you have to say is that we have decided to split up. We've thought about it quite a bit and we are set on this course, but we love you and we're going to try and make this as painless as possible for the family. As much as possible, do not involve your kids in the divorce. Do not play, like if you're the sort of the wronged spouse, do not like say, oh, your father or your mother, terrible. Don't do that. If you are the person who sort of did the shady thing, and again, marriages generally, it's not one person's fault. It's a give and take thing, but oftentimes there is one person who has done shadier things. If you're the shady person, do not try to look better in your kids' eyes by, spilling the dirt on something that, your spouse did at one point. Well, you should have seen what your mother used to do. No, don't do that. Be adults and know that these kids are upset about this. They may be launching out of the house. It is still going to be hard because they probably saw it. Like they probably saw their friends, parents get divorced through growing up. And they're like, but my parents made it. But no, they didn't. So this is hard for them. So just be respectful of that. And if you're saying, like, well, of course I've got to talk to my daughter about this because my daughter's my best friend. In this case, just go elsewhere. Tell it to your therapist. Tell it to somebody, some other friend. Do not involve your children. You are the adults here. You are the parents. You are supposed to have their best interests in mind. And no good can come of pitting your children against their other parents. Don't do that. I'm sorry. I know it's hard. But you've got to rise above that in this case, and things will go smoother. Um, if you are the person who has done these shadier stuff, I know a lot of people don't like to admit they're wrong, and particularly if one or all of your children are confronting you and saying, "How could you do that?" You don't have to justify yourself to anybody, but you can say, and I hope this is true, you can say something like, I wish I had done things better. I wish I'd handled it better. Again, it's not, like I shouldn't have done that, but I wish I had handled things better because chances are, if you look really deep, you probably wish you hadn't had the affair, that somehow you guys, because, it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be like you guys recognize you're having problems, and then like maybe you meet somebody and you're like, "Ooh, I'm gonna not see you. I'm gonna go back, try and fix my marriage." And after legitimately trying to fix your marriage and it breaks up, then you go on to somebody else. That is something that is the proper way to do this. If there's a proper way to do that. So chances are you do wish it had worked out a little neater, and not just that you wished that no one had found out about it, because that's not the same thing. So, you know, you can own up to it that much, it would probably go a long way toward having your children be less angry with you. And it could probably go a long way toward having your spouse less angry with you as well, as if you say, I know I screwed up in the way that I did this, if you feel that way. But whatever the case is, keep the kids out of it and know that just because they're adults, they could still be having a really hard time with this. All of this is hard. Divorce is hard, but divorce when you have kids is excruciating. So please just keep that in mind. Keep working at it and try as much as possible to keep this as civil as possible, and knowing that you are going to, since you have kids, you are going to see your spouse for the rest of your lives. It's going to be, like graduations and weddings and grandkids and all of that. And so the foundation that you're building right now for your divorce life is going to pay off if you do it well. And if you don't do it well, it is not going to be good. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, so good luck with everything. You can get through this.